Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Are you sure you're okay?
Mom, I'm okay.
Thank God, that's all that matters.
I'm glad you feel that way. I just got kicked out of school.
Imagine having a disease that eats away at your brain or your lungs, but you still have to show up to work and be funny. That takes a special kind of bravery. From heart explosions on set to silent cancers, these are the true stories of the sitcom stars who were dying while the laugh track played on. 1. Robin Williams on Mork and Mindy.
I discovered a terrible Earth disease called loneliness.
Do many people on Earth suffer from this illness?
Everyone knows Robin Williams was a ball of energy. He was the alien Mork from Ork who spoke a mile a minute, and he was the genie who granted wishes. He seemed like the most alive person in Hollywood. He could make anyone laugh with just a look or a funny voice. But the thing nobody tells you is that in his final years, his brain was under attack by a silent enemy. Doctors originally thought he had Parkinson's disease because his hands would shake and he moved stiffly. But the truth was much scarier. He had something called Lewy body dementia. It is a disease that messes with the brain cells and causes hallucinations and confusion. It is like the computer in your head starts rebooting at random times. His wife said later that this disease was the terrorist inside his brain. He was struggling to remember his lines, which was heartbreaking for a man who used to improvise whole scenes. He was fighting anxiety and fear every single day. The saddest part is that nobody knew how bad it really was until after he was gone. The autopsy showed that his case was one of the worst the doctors had ever seen. He was suffering in silence while still trying to make the world smile. But while Robin hid his pain behind high energy, the next funny man on our list hid his deadly condition right out in the open, and he even made it his most famous catchphrase, which makes the way he finally passed away truly chilling. 2. Red Fox on Sanford and Son.
Hello, Fred. Hello, Woody. Goodbye, Woody.
If you watched TV in the 70s, you remember Fred Sanford. He was the grumpy junk dealer who was always yelling at his son Lamont. His most famous move was grabbing his chest and looking up at the sky. He would yell, "This is the big one. I am coming to join you, Elizabeth." The audience would roar with laughter every single time he faked a heart attack. But what many overlooked is that Red Fox really did have heart problems. It was a case of art imitating life in a very dangerous way. In 1991, he was on the set of a new show called The Royal Family. He was taking a break between scenes when he suddenly collapsed to the floor. Because he had spent his whole career faking heart attacks for laughs, the cast and crew thought he was joking around. They stood there waiting for him to get up and deliver a punchline. But this time, he did not get up. It really was the big one. By the time they realized it was serious, it was too late. He passed away from a heart attack right there on the set. It is a tragic reminder that sometimes the boy who cried wolf is actually telling the truth. Dying on set is a rare tragedy, but it happened to another beloved sitcom dad who was known for his physical comedy and huge smile. And his sudden collapse left a hole in Hollywood that has never been filled. 3. John Ritter on Three's Company.
Well, you're certainly one of the warmest applause tracks I've ever appeared before.
John Ritter was the king of falling down and bumping into things. On Three's Company, he played Jack Tripper, and he could make a whole room laugh just by tripping over a couch. Decades later, he was the dad on 8 Simple Rules. He was loved by everyone for being the nicest guy in the business. He was only 54 years old and looked healthy and happy. One day he was rehearsing on the set of 8 Simple Rules when he started to feel sick. He was sweating and had chest pains. Everyone thought he just had a stomach bug or maybe food poisoning. He was taken to the hospital across the street. The doctors there made a fatal mistake. They treated him for a heart attack, but that was not the problem. He actually had an aortic dissection. That is a fancy way of saying the main tube carrying blood from his heart had a tear in it. It is a very rare and very deadly condition that often happens without warning. Because they were treating him for the wrong thing, they lost precious time. He passed away that same night. It was a shock that rocked the entire world because he had been laughing and joking just hours before. Heart issues are scary because they are sudden, but our next star fought a long battle with a disease that took away her voice, which was the only part of her the audience ever saw. 4. Carol Ann Susie on The Big Bang Theory.
Senior Fitness was canceled. It turns out you can forget how to ride a bike.
You might not know her face, but if you watch The Big Bang Theory, you definitely know her voice. Carol Ann Susie played Mrs. Wolowitz, the loud and overbearing mother of Howard. We never once saw her on screen. We only heard her yelling Howard from another room. Her voice was iconic, and she was a huge part of why the show was so funny. Behind the scenes, Carol Ann was battling a very aggressive form of cancer. She was a private person, and she did not want the whole world to know she was sick. She kept working and yelling those funny lines even as she got weaker. It is amazing to think about the energy she put into that voice while her body was fighting such a tough battle. She passed away in 2014 after a short struggle with the illness. The show decided not to recast her because they said her voice was irreplaceable. Instead, they wrote her death into the show. The characters mourned her, and it led to some of the most emotional moments in the series. It was a touching tribute to a woman who was heard but never seen. While Carol Ann was a hidden voice, our next star was a king of comedy who stood center stage, but underneath his tough exterior, his lungs were slowly turning against him. 5. Bernie Mac on The Bernie Mac Show. Bernie Mac was a force of nature. He was one of the original kings of comedy, and he had his own hit sitcom where he talked to the camera as America's dad. He was known for being tough and saying what was on his mind. He always seemed strong and invincible, but for most of his life he was dealing with a condition called sarcoidosis. This is an inflammatory disease that attacks your body tissues, and for Bernie, it attacked his lungs. He lived with it for 25 years. He didn't let it stop him from performing. He would go out on stage and give it 100% even when he was feeling tired. In 2008, he was admitted to the hospital. Everyone thought he would bounce back because he was Bernie Mac. But his immune system was weak from the disease, and he caught pneumonia. His body just could not fight it off. He passed away at age 50, leaving millions of fans heartbroken. He used to say, "I ain't scared of you," but in the end, a tiny bacteria was the one thing he couldn't scare away. Bernie was a big man with a big personality, but our next star was famous for being small, yet his health problems were huge, and they started from the day he was born. 6. Gary Coleman on Different Strokes.
That you haven't had one single piece of junk food today.
And we're proud as punch, which incidentally is very bad for you.
It wasn't too hard.
What you talking about, Willis? That phrase made Gary Coleman the biggest child star in the world. He played Arnold Jackson on Different Strokes. He was cute and funny, and he stayed small even as he got older. People thought his short height was just a quirk or genetics, but it was actually a symptom of a serious illness. Gary was born with congenital kidney disease. One of his kidneys had failed completely, and the other was weak. Because of this, his body stopped growing at a young height of 4 feet 8 inches. He had to have 2 kidney transplants in his life, one when he was 5 and another when he was 14. He also had to do dialysis, which is where a machine cleans your blood 4 times a day. Despite all this pain and medical drama, he showed up to work and made people laugh. But the constant health issue took a toll on his body and his heart. He passed away young at age 42 after a fall in his home. His life was full of struggles, but he never let his size determine his talent. Gary dealt with his illness his whole life, but our next legend was the sheriff of a quiet town who kept his private pain locked up tighter than the jail cells in Mayberry. Andy Griffith on The Andy Griffith Show.
What are you calling the state police for?
To get the job done. Get equipment in here, guns, tear gas. If necessary, to blast him out.
Andy Griffith was America's sheriff. As Andy Taylor, he was calm and wise, and he walked through the streets of Mayberry whistling a happy tune. He lived a long life and became a famous lawyer on Matlock later in his career. He seemed like a sturdy oak tree that nothing could knock down. But in his later years, the sheriff faced a strange and rare disease. In 1983, he was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome. This is a disorder where the body attacks its own nerves. It caused him terrible pain and paralyzed him from the legs down for a while. He had to wear special splints on his legs just to walk. He fought through it and got back to acting. However, the battle that eventually took him was heart disease. He had a quadruple bypass surgery that he kept fairly quiet. In 2012, he passed away at his home in North Carolina. He was buried on his family farm, just hours after he died, which fits the simple country life he always portrayed. Sheriff Taylor always had his deputy by his side, and in a sad twist of fate, that deputy was fighting a very similar battle with his own lungs just a few years earlier. 8. Don Knotts on Three's Company.
It's just a blob.
Oh, don't fool me. I'd recognize your mother anyplace.
Don Knotts was the master of acting nervous. As Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show and Mr. Furley on Three's Company, he was always shaking and making funny faces. His wide eyes and high-pitched voice were his trademarks. He made a career out of looking like a panic attack waiting to happen. But in real life, Don was a cool and calm professional. In his 80s, he started to get sick. He was diagnosed with lung cancer. He didn't want the public to worry about him, so he kept the news very private. He continued to do voice work for cartoons like Chicken Little even while he was undergoing treatment. His old friend Andy Griffith was by his bedside when he passed away in 2006. It is touching to know that the sheriff and the deputy were together until the very end. Don Knotts spent his life acting weak, but facing cancer quietly showed he was actually incredibly strong. Don Knotts made us laugh with his goofy faces, but our next star was the original nosy neighbor whose curiosity was funny, but whose real-life fate was a tragedy that the studio tried to cover up. 9. Alice Pierce on Bewitched.
Oh, man! And I think it's just about time you realized it.
On the show Bewitched. Gladys Kravitz was the neighbor across the street who was always peeking through her curtains. She would scream Abner whenever she saw magic happening. The actress Alice Pierce won an Emmy for the role because she was just so funny and frantic. But if you watch the second season closely, you might notice she looks very tired. That is because Alice Pierce was dying of ovarian cancer. She knew she was sick before the show even started filming. She chose not to tell the producers because she wanted to work and she needed the money. She filmed her scenes while she was in severe pain. By the end, she weighed very little and was extremely weak. She passed away in 1966, and the show had to recast the role with another actress. It is heartbreaking to watch those episodes, now knowing that while she was screaming about magic, she was fighting for her life. Alice Pierce was the nosy neighbor, but our next actor was the grumpy grandfather who shouted, "Holy crap," but secretly battled a cancer that eats away at the bones. 10. Peter Boyle on Everybody Loves.
I mean, this is show business, and we do say things like this without thinking.
I don't think I did.
Raymond Frank Barone was the dad everyone loved to fear. On Everybody Loves. Raymond, he sat in his armchair with his pants unbuttoned, yelling at his wife Marie and calling his sons idiots. Peter Boyle played the character so well that it is hard to imagine him as anything else. He was the anchor of the show for 9 seasons. Just a year after the show ended, Peter Boyle fell ill. He had multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the plasma cells in the bone marrow. It is a painful disease that weakens your bones and your immune system. He also had heart problems on top of that. He died in 2006. What is really special is that he met his wife on the set of the movie Young Frankenstein, where he played the monster. He was a man who could play scary monsters and grumpy dads, but in real life he was a gentle soul who left us too soon after his biggest success. Peter Boyle played a grump, but our next star played a strict military leader who had to command a mobile hospital while his own body was fighting a war against old age and infection. 11. Harry Morgan, on MASH. Colonel Potter on MASH, was the leader everyone respected. He was firm but fair, and he loved his horse Sophie. Harry Morgan played him with a twinkle in his eye. He was a veteran actor who had been in hundreds of movies and shows. He worked well into his 90s, which is an achievement on its own. But even generals have to face the end. In 2011, at the age of 96, Harry Morgan developed pneumonia. For a younger person, pneumonia is tough, but for someone nearly 100 years old, it is very dangerous. His lungs filled with fluid, and his body was just too tired to keep fighting. He passed away peacefully in his sleep. His son said he was funny until the very end. He lived a long, full life, but it is still sad to say goodbye to the man who guided the MASH unit through so many hard times. Colonel Potter was a leader of men, but our next actor was a son who moved on up to the East Side only to face a throat cancer that silenced his voice forever. 12. Mike Evans on The Jeffersons.
I just got kicked out of school.
Mike Evans was the original Lionel Jefferson. He was the son of George and Wheezy, and he was the cool young guy who kept his dad in check. He actually co-created the show Good Times, which is a huge deal in TV history. He was smart and talented and had a bright future. But Mike Evans disappeared from the spotlight after the 80s. He lived a quiet life away from Hollywood. The sad truth is that he was diagnosed with throat cancer. This is a brutal disease for an actor because it affects your ability to speak and eat. He battled the cancer for a long time, but he passed away in 2006 at the relatively young age of 57. He was not in the news much at the time, so many fans did not even know he had died until years later. It was a quiet end for a man who helped create some of the loudest and best voices on television. Mike Evans helped build a sitcom empire, but our next actress was the receptionist who ran the office with a witty remark and bright red hair until breast cancer stole her away. 13. Marcia Wallace on The Bob Newhart Show.
I hate cruising. I sound like I'm not much fun, and I am.
Marcia Wallace was famous for 2 big roles. She was the funny receptionist Carol on The Bob Newhart Show, and she was the voice of Mrs. Krabappel, the teacher on The Simpsons. If you remember the laugh, from The Simpsons, that was her. She was brilliant at playing sassy, independent women. Marcia was a survivor. She was diagnosed with breast cancer way back in 1985, and she beat it. She became a huge advocate for cancer awareness and spent years helping others. But sadly, the cancer came back later in her life. She also suffered from pneumonia, which made everything worse. She passed away in 2013. The Simpsons producers honored her by retiring her character. They showed a scene of Bart Simpson writing, "We will really miss you, Mrs. K," on the chalkboard. It was a simple and tearful goodbye to a woman who made school detention seem funny. Marcia was a strong woman, but our next 3 entries are the most famous roommates in TV history who all lived in the same house and sadly all faced tragic illnesses one after another. 14. Estelle Getty on The Golden Girls Picture.
We
Dorothy, should I get Sophia a glass of water?
No, Rose. You should sit here and watch her hack herself to death.
It's Sicily, 1922. Estelle Getty played Sophia, the tiny, sarcastic mother on The Golden Girls. She was the oldest character on the show, but in real life, she was actually younger than the actress who played her daughter. She had to wear a white wig and old-age makeup to play the part. But during the filming of the show, Estelle started having trouble remembering her lines. She had to use cue cards, which made her feel embarrassed. People thought it was just nerves or normal aging. It turned out to be the early stages of Lewy body dementia, the same disease that Robin Williams had. After the show ended, her condition got much worse. She slowly lost her ability to speak and recognize her friends. It was a long and painful decline for the woman who was known for her razor-sharp wit. She passed away in 2008, just days before her 85th birthday. Sophia was the first Golden Girl to leave us, but her on-screen daughter was not far behind, and she faced a double threat of stroke and cancer. 15. Rue McClanahan on The Golden Girls.
Are you sure you dropped it off at the newspaper office?
Dorothy, you told me exactly what you wanted me to do a dozen times. Any idiot could have done it.
I know, honey, but you were the only one going down.
Rue McClanahan played Blanche Devereaux, the Southern belle who loved men and was not afraid to show it. She was full of life and energy. She was the one who kept the Golden Girls feeling young. But in real life, Rue's health was a roller coaster. She survived breast cancer in the 90s. But then she started having heart problems. She had a triple bypass surgery to fix her heart. Then in 2009, she suffered a minor stroke. Just as she was recovering, she had a massive stroke in 2010. It was a brain hemorrhage that she could not recover from. She died at age 76. It was a shock to fans who always saw her as the vibrant and unstoppable Blanche. She was a fighter, but her body just had too many battles to fight at once. 2 Golden Girls were gone, and the third one, the tall and commanding leader, also kept her illness a secret until the very end. 16. B. Arthur on The Golden Girls.
This must be my lucky day. I usually end up sitting next to a fat, sweaty man who insists on taking his shirt off.
B. Arthur was Dorothy Zbornak, the smart and deep-voiced leader of the group. She was known for her deadpan stares and her ability to silence anyone with a look. She was a private person who did not like fuss or attention. In her final years, B. developed lung cancer. She did not want anyone to know. She stayed in her home in Los Angeles, surrounded by her family. She did not want the media circus or the pity of the public. She faced her death the same way she faced life, with dignity and strength. She passed away in 2009. In her will, she left money to support homeless LGBT youth, showing that her heart was as big as her talent. The Golden Girls are all together again, now sharing cheesecake in the sky. But it hurts to know they all suffered before they left us. The Golden Girls were a family chosen by friendship, but our next star was a literal uncle who became a father figure to a generation until a surgery went wrong. 17. James Avery on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Cousin, you are not going to MacArthur Park tonight. In fact, none of you are going to MacArthur Park tonight.
Uncle Phil was the dad everyone wanted. James Avery played the judge who was strict with Will Smith, but loved him deeply. He was a big man with a booming voice and a warm smile. He taught us lessons about life and responsibility. In 2013, James Avery needed open heart surgery. It was supposed to be a routine procedure to fix a problem. Millions of people get heart surgery and come out fine. But sadly, James suffered complications after the operation. He passed away in the hospital on New Year's Eve. Will Smith later said that James Avery was like a second father to him. The scene where Will asks, "Why don't he want me?" Man and Uncle Phil hugs him is one of the most famous scenes in TV history. Losing him so suddenly was like losing a family member for millions of fans. Uncle Phil was the stern father, but our next star was the goofy friend in a black and white world whose laughter hid a chronic illness. 18. Frank Bank on Leave It to Beaver.
Hey, you know something, Beaver?
What, Wally?
You'll be the first kid to ever be thrown out of the second grade in the history of the school.
If you watch old reruns of Leave It to Beaver, you know Lumpy Rutherford. He was the bully who was actually a bit of a coward, and he was always messing with Wally and the beaver. Frank Bank played him perfectly as the guy you love to see fail. After the show, Frank Bank left acting and became a stockbroker. He managed money for many of his old Hollywood friends. He lived a quiet and successful life, but sadly he developed cancer later in life. He passed away in 2013, just one day after turning 71. It is strange to think of the black and white characters of our childhood facing the grim reality of cancer, but time comes for everyone, even the residents of Mayfield. Lumpy was a clumsy teen, but our next star was a bumbling soldier who led the F Troop into disaster every week while his heart was slowly failing. 19. Ken Berry on F Troop.
I don't get it, Uncle Dan. It's one chance in a million that an election can turn out a tie.
Everybody who knows what bragging stands for must have voted for me.
Ken Berry was a physical comedy genius. On F Troop, he played Captain Parmenter, the accidental hero who was always tripping over his own sword. He was also a fantastic dancer and singer. He had a lightness to him that made him a joy to watch. But hearts are fragile things. As Ken got older, he developed serious heart complications. He faded from the spotlight and lived quietly. In 2018, he passed away at the age of 85. His death was a reminder of a simpler time in television when falling down was the funniest thing you could do. He spent his life making his heart race for our entertainment until it finally stopped. We have talked about 1932, legends who have passed away, but our final entry is a special case. He is the only one on this list who is still with us fighting his battle every single day in front of the world. 20. Michael J. Fox on Family Ties.
Remember when we were little kids and I accidentally ran over you with my bicycle?
Yeah.
I drive a car now.
Michael J. Fox was the golden boy of the 80s. As Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties, he was the smart suit-wearing kid who loved money. He was energetic and handsome and on top of the world. He went on to star in Back to the Future and became a massive movie star. But in 1991, while filming a movie, he noticed a twitch in his pinky finger. He tried to hide it. He would put his hand in his pocket or hold a prop to stop the shaking. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at only 29 years old. It was a devastating blow. Doctors told him he had 10 years left to work. He kept it a secret for 7 years. He took pills to control the shaking and used acting tricks to hide his symptoms. Finally, in 1998, he told the world. Instead of disappearing, he became a hero. He started a foundation that has raised over $1 billion for research. He is still alive today, defying the odds. He can no longer act because he cannot remember lines and his body moves uncontrollably, but he is more inspiring now than he ever was on a sitcom. He shows us that even when your body is failing, your spirit can still soar. He is the ultimate survivor in a world of fallen stars.